supervisor position.
If I could have your attention, please, it's 1 o'clock. I would like to call the CCWD regular board meeting of Wednesday, September 11th, 2019 to order. Would you all rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Is that a 7th grade
Here.
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 I'm here.
I am also here. Okay, this is item number 2, public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration, and no action can be taken on matters not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have anyone wishing to address the board under public comments this morning? Okay, seeing none, let's go to the consent agenda. Okay, we have 3A, review of the Board of Directors' monthly timesheets, and we have 3B, approval of the amendment of the fiscal year 2019-20 personnel allocation.
Move for acceptance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have seconds. Okay. Would you please pull the board?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, going on to item number 4, new business. We have 4A, discussion and action regarding awarding and authorizing a construction contract for the Jenny Lind Kirby Gabor Gardner service line replacement project. This is capital improvement number 11066G. Hello, Charles.
Hello. So this project was to target an area of the England water system that where our maintenance crews are frequently having to repair service laterals. And so we went through the put together some construction plans and specifications. We put it out for bids. We only did have we advertised. We did only get one. We had a pre-bid meeting that was well attended by several contractors, but at the time of the bid opening, only one contractor ultimately submitted a bid. That bid was in line with our engineer's cost estimate, and so based on that, and we decided to bring to the board for recommendation for award. So, and it's obviously $460,800, and the low bidder was TNS West, not the same TNS construction that was on Reach Street, but a different TNS construction.
Are we familiar with this company?
They did actually do some work out at Saddle Creek in replacing, doing paving and replacing manhole lids, and during that work effort, our staff went out and inspected work, they did, and we did not experience any problems with them, the quality of the work was good. So I did check their DIR registration, Department of Industrial Relations, I did talk to them. I can do some more checking around.
I assume when they submitted their bid, they had to submit a list of projects that they've completed, or?
They did not at this point, but if the board would like to proceed with authorizing the general manager, then prior to entering into the contract, I can follow up with that.
Well, we'd always like to see that they've done, when we haven't used them before, it's nice to see that they've done similar projects, and then maybe, I'm happy to make the motion for acceptance based on, a little further review of their similar work items and at least, a recommendation or at least inquiry.
I have one question. You said that there was a pretty, there were a few other contractors there who were interested, and do you have any idea why? That's what I was gonna say. They backed
One
out?
contractor, the timing of the project's not particularly great in terms of, because it has a paving component, so we're going into winter, and all the asphalt plants close down during the winter. So that kind of complicates the schedule a little bit. And one contractor called me up saying, you know, he thought his bid was just gonna be way more than the engineer's estimate, so they just decided not to. They went back and bid like over $800,000.
Needless to say.
Yeah. So I was happy that we did receive a bid that was in line with what we thought it was gonna cost.
How many bids did we receive?
Just
One.
You know, I'd like to see somebody make some effort to look at the jobs they've done before and reach out to those folks to see how things went, since we haven't used them before.
Well, that's what they were
Right.
talking about.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying I
Oh,
support this decision.
You agree with Jeff?
Okay, before we entertain a motion here, I have a couple of questions here, Charles. I see that this was on the capital improvement budget at $250,000, and it's for 85 service line replacements. And I don't know, I just kind of want to get a feel for how, I mean, at at 250,000, that would have been $3,000 each, $2,900 each. What happened in the meantime to get this thing up to, you know, double that?
I think the scope may have expanded slightly, and then also it just seems like there was a bump in cost after 2017 and in 2018. So, I mean, I know so, yeah, I may have been working off of maybe numbers that were, you know, a couple years old.
But Charles, wouldn't you, if you included this in the 1920 budget, which is our current budget, when you were looking at those numbers, wouldn't you have found out at that point that it was more than 250? Because you're saying it's in our budget now for 250, so we're gonna have to make an adjustment. I don't know why that wasn't done during the budget process.
I think all I have to go off of on the budget numbers is basically prior projects, you know, and I mean, the cost of these services has gone up over time.
But again, my question is, and Michael, maybe you can jump in as you were part of this budget. When you met with everybody, why did this not get caught? I mean, it's almost double now, and now I mean, as I recall, trying to balance the budget, we had to come up with some adjustments somewhere. So now, where is this difference gonna come from? If it's at now 460,000 and we budgeted for 250, is that what this is saying? Yes. So I don't,
Well, the next, it says where it's coming from in the next,
Next budget,
Next
or next
agenda.
but again,
agenda.
it just to me is, we shouldn't have to be adjusting the budget when you're working on your budget. You had this already on the shelf. If you were gonna bring it forward, you knew you were gonna work on it. To me, it seems like those numbers should have been adjusted before we got to this point.
So we didn't have the full engineer's estimate during the budget cycle process. This was still just a project that we were gonna put out to bid. We were gonna develop the engineering estimate, put the project out to bid, and that was the estimate that we had at the time.
I mean, it was a conceptual. I
Right.
mean, what happened was the design got more expansive, and it turned into a bigger project, at
Right.
least in part.
Right.
More, you know.
So it's
And
still,
anybody that doesn't think, you know, construction, you know, costs are rising, I mean, they just absolutely are. We're out of that cycle. We had a good run of being in that cycle where we had multiple bidders, we had big contractors bidding little jobs like this. Those days are over. You know, those guys were all moving big dirt.
right.
You know, so it's just, that's just one of those things. It's a cyclical thing that happens. And I agree, I mean, if they had a crystal ball and had this thing in full design during the budget, they should have had an engineer's estimate at that time, but I don't believe that part was done.
We didn't have that information at the time, and it still comes out of R&R funds, to answer your other question, so it's not, it doesn't necessarily affect the overall budget. It's just reallocated.
So
those
in
funds.
the CIP budget will affect, so another job may get less money.
We're gonna have to see, I guess we'll continue to prioritize and come up with cost estimates as those jobs play out
And-
over the course of the year.
My other comment with this particular job, since we did only get one bid, should you revisit it and find out, is it something that we do need to do this year? Is that high on the priority?
I will just tell you, this is the biggest priority in my district, is fixing these, and it's probably the biggest priority in the entire district. You know,
It is-
Jenny Lind water line needs to be worked on, and we're not, we spent 10
Just
million.
asking.
10 million in Abbott's Pass. We're looking at 460,000 in Jenny Lind. Yeah,
It is our most problematic distribution system. We are dedicating a tremendous amount of resources to repairing leaks, and this is an effort to try to get out in front of that so that we're spending less resources repairing those leaks and doing, wholesale service line replacement where we identified these particular ones as the most problematic, where we're having to go back repeatedly. A lot of these service lines have multiple repair clamps on them already. So we're trying to target the ones where we're already dedicating a lot of resources, and then we're gonna incrementally have to do that throughout Jenny Lind and Poker Flat and some other areas where we have a lot of leaks.
I would just like to suggest, you're saying it was put together back in 17, you're looking at it 2 years later, maybe going forward to be a little bit more mindful that maybe you should revisit that number as well. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
The biggest concern I have here is the one contractor being interested in this project at the price that we have it, that we have it in engineered estimate. The engineer's estimate came in at, that's your estimate, correct?
Correct.
It was
Stan
four,
helped me with it.
450.
But
What,
there were, KW Emerson did take a serious look at it, and DRN Construction, two other local contractors, did make an effort. They started in the process of putting together a price. And I talked to DRM on the day before the bid opening. They decided their bid was going to be too high, so they just decided not to bid on it. I'm not exactly sure why KW Emerson did not bid.
what happens if they get into the project and they find that there's costs over and above this
Right.
460 that they didn't consider? Is this the type of project that we're going to allow supplemental invoices on? Change orders, whatever you want to call them?
You can't prevent change orders. Hopefully you can minimize them, and
Well, you kind of can control them if the scope of the project is such that, and the pricing is compared to everything, and everything was thought of ahead of time. And so I'm just kind of wondering with only having one bid, it might be time, or we might consider, I don't know, especially going into winter. These are the roads that we put the Saturday work program on, correct? And a whole lot of effort has gone into this in the past couple of years of repairing it. I do agree. I also agree with Director Davidson that this is a high priority item, but it seems to me that the chances of change orders are very, very likely in this scenario that we're setting ourselves up with here. And I don't.
pretty straightforward project.
yeah, I think one of the biggest factors is just the whole paving circumstances. I mean, it involves the county. We have to, you have a bid item, and it's so much per ton. But you get out on the job site, and our inspector and the county inspectors are there, and they're saying, okay, well, you got a salt cut here, a salt cut here, and it's paving. On every single project I've been on, the paving seems to always go over budget, unfortunately. So it's something you have to really pay very close attention to. If you call for 2 inches of paving, and they put down 2.5 inches of paving on the entire project, your cost has gone up 20%. So, I mean, you just have to be really mindful of the paving costs.
And you said that paving or asphalt isn't produced during the winter, yet this project.
Said you'd be happy to make it.
How is that? How are they going to fill? How is the paving going to be done during the winter?
Dr.
Well,
Russ.
so they still have to order all the materials, so we may not actually, they may do some work prior to winter, but once it starts raining and
They can't do it.
far into winter, they may just stop efforts until the spring. So, that's, we would like to make progress, but, it does complicate your entire, inconveniences to the public. We have roads half torn up, and your stormwater pollution prevention measures. You have a construction site, you have to maintain it and monitor it through the winter. so.
The one contractor that that you still haven't heard from, Emerson, they're a local contractor, correct?
Yeah. Mhm.
Where's TNS from?
Where would they have it? They're not in the county, I think they're outside of county. Might be,
And that's something we always like to look at is, using local contractors and,
That's what he said, Emerson and DRM had
Emerson,
Ex-
San Andreas,
yeah.
DRMs and Copperopolis.
had expressed an interest, and then they decided not to do
and
that.
DRM was one that was thought they'd gonna be way too high.
Yeah.
And Emerson, we just never heard from.
I didn't follow up, close the loop with them to find out why exactly they decided to not come.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Could I have a couple of statements,
Statements?
or
Go ahead.
points?
Points.
3A was, I think our bid was, or we thought that it was gonna be something like 7.5 million, and it came in a little over 8, a little less than 10, Jeff. Then I'm just.
That's just the latest project.
And then I'm just curious about the change orders. What are our parameters now? Do we have a percentage that they cannot exceed?
Well, you can't entirely control that. I mean, so there's two types of change orders. There's like change orders, something that the district requests that they want added to the project. And then there's kind of change orders that, unforeseen circumstances.
Right.
You start digging in the ground.
When
and
we
solid
hit
rock.
lava rock or something?
Well, the good news about this thing is most of it's already been dug up.
Oh,
Just last week.
So we know it's loose, most of it.
It can't be a change order where they say something like, oh, well, we only bid it this much and it's taking us too long, so we want.
No, it's a
more."
contract,
That's
you
not
guys.
a
They gotta fulfill the
Well,
obligation of the
What
contract.
I heard Charles say was that specifications for 2 inches of asphalt, if they put in 2.5, they can charge extra for it, and I don't think that's right. I mean, if they put in 2.5 at their own, they make a decision to put in 2.5 instead of 2, it should be on them. Is everybody
That's
clear on that?
where we need to have our inspector out there making sure, they're watching that closely, so.
Yeah,
'Cause they don't do paving by the inch, they do it by the ton.
Yeah.
But the other thing though, if our specs say it's 2 inches and they go 2.5, that's
That's
on
on
them.
them.
There's no way that.
If it adds to the tonnage.
I would agree to pay them more because they did it bigger because of whatever reason.
Right, well, where the confusion comes in is like the county comes out and says, we want, like, our contractor wants to make the saw cut here, the county says, no, you gotta move it over a foot, and saw cut here. So then all of a sudden you have like a variable quantity of material that's being used. And that's why you have a unit price, so they can capture that.
Well, even with that situation you just said, I think they should factor that in there in their contract. I'm sure they have a 10, 15% leeway to account for that stuff. And it is, over our budget, so.
Okay, but
our estimate.
anybody like to take a break before we vote on this?
I'll move for acceptance.
Okay.
second.
Huh? Well, it was just going on and on, but, okay. She
Now,
seconded.
Russ, we know you're in a hurry to leave.
I am in a
so-
hurry.
Everybody else wants to move on.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'd like to open it up for public comment. Seeing no public comment, would you please poll the board quickly?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, one final comment on this. If
No,
in
we gotta take a
fact.
break first.
No, we have to take a break. If in fact, DRM, which I like, have a lot of respect for them and their methodology and everything, if they were 800,000, thinking it was 800,000, let's watch this TNS, and this is not going to be the last water or service line adjustment or installation project that we're going to have. So if they do a good job, let's keep them around. Okay? Good deal. Maybe do it on a unit cost per service line, so.
Okay, if you read this, I'll make a motion.
Oh,
Second.
Oh, yes.
Is that fast enough for us?
For the one time, we're on the same page, but I'm not on the same page. Okay. Let's look at 4B, discussion and action regarding amending the fiscal year 2019-20 CIP budget for the Jenny Lind Service Line Replacement Project that we just approved.
Move for acceptance.
Well, Jeff did.
He said he wanted to.
Second,
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, a couple of them. Anyone wishing to make a comment on this item? Seeing none, would you please pull the board?
We got a presentation.
Presentation?
yes.
Director Rattner?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Stang?
Yes.
President Thomas?
I'm going to approve this, but subject to, do you want to make a presentation on this? Okay,
No, I think you've handled everything in the last item, so.
okay, good. All right, now we get to some really interesting stuff. 4C. This is accept and file the GASB 75 actuarial evaluation of other post-employment benefits and actuarial determined contributions report.
I'm glad I could drop this on you and thoroughly confuse everyone on the board, apparently. So just so you know, the timing of this is that this is an interim report. There's not a full evaluation of the BAR's, allocations and everything until every other year according to GASB 75 accounting standards. So what this is mostly used for is for the auditor's purposes to complete their annual financial statements. And so the idea is that you're approving this report, that it's accurate at this point and ready to go on to the auditors for their use. But more so, just to give you a little history on the PARS account, the district has historically funded this benefit pay-as-you-go since the beginning of time, since it offered these retiree health benefits. So essentially what they've been doing to this point is paying quarterly disbursements to retirees in addition to those people that are currently still working here, funding that contribution as well. The district didn't join PARS and create the fund until about 2009. So up until that point, the district had just been paying as you go. But now in 2009, the district, seeing ahead as far as the unfunded liability, decided to start pre-funding those folks that will be retiring later on. And so that was at the time in 2009 when the district joined PARS and started paying into basically what's a trust. And the trust is there for future employees and also to start to close the gap on those future employees and making sure that they will be funded later too as well. GASB 75 is relatively new. It's a new accounting standard. It used to be GASB 45, which allowed for districts not to show a liability based upon a 30-year term. But over time, started to see a lot of cities, counties, special districts not showing that accrued liability because they were allowed to defer that liability until the 30-year term of these payments. And so folks weren't actually showing the true cost and liability for these organizations as it was growing. And so GASB 75 updated those standards. Now you see the full liability based upon the demographics of the folks that are retired, folks that are currently working here, and you start to be able to actually see that gap analysis. So for the purposes of today, I think what you're seeing is the true cost of these benefits. We just had a compensation study by COF. Those are the total benefits, right? So this is a portion of those total benefits, and you're seeing the cost of that broken down over time. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the report. Just understand that this report was not completed by me, but I have spent quite a bit of time over the last few weeks trying to get up to speed. So
I have, I ended up calling Gary Klein on this report because even though I'm in finance, I'm not an actuary, and I kind of wanted to ask him in layman's terms, what is this report telling us? And he stayed on the phone with me for like 15, 20 minutes. I can't totally relay all the information he gave me because that's just, I can't. But a couple of things he said was, one, this wasn't pre-funded in the beginning like Peter noticed. So it is now, and you should keep pre-funding that. We also, his recommendation would be to also compare all the benefits, and that's all compensation to determine if we're gonna be okay when we get to a certain point. And then you also want to determine what is the percentage of payroll. And so what I would like to suggest to the board, I don't know about anybody else, but I'd like to get a presentation from them, and they can explain that a little bit more detail and also recommend what we as a board should do going forward with this. He mentioned that this report is not for everyday people to be looking at. This is for the auditor's purpose, like Peter stated. But it's a tool that we as directors should be looking at and knowing if we're going in the right direction. And a lot of it has to do with the benefits the district offers, any options you potentially may want to go. He said that, with the cost of the medical insurance that's going up really high, a lot of, not a lot, but some places, they have employees do a share of cost, but it's kind of here, no there. I was just wondering how you'd feel if we could bring somebody in, he would do a presentation, and give us a guide, if you will, as directors, staff. Here's their recommendation of what we should do with this. Are we funding enough to get to where we need to be by 2027? And he says this here is only based on what we're actually paying. When you look at that one graph, I think on page 5. So he says he usually charges like around $700 to come out and do a PowerPoint and do this, but he was more than willing to do it. So I would like to see it, but it's up to you.
I think it's a good idea. I'd like to see that presentation being done in the presence of our new or our upcoming. Have we posted for your interim position?
Yeah, so we've posted, we have a very strong pool of candidates we're excited about. We're starting the interview process next week.
I'd like to see that new financial guy in the building and at that presentation.
And, we don't need it right away.
No,
right.
Because there's nothing that this report that we can
Right.
do differently. It's just for going forward. And I'd even made that suggestion that we have that finance director when I was speaking to him. So, or at least
Spoiler alert,
guidance.
as of the current pool of interviewees, it will not be a financial guy. I can guarantee you that.
Well,
He said too much.
Peter went out and got
And now you can't run for Congress.
Anyhow, to move things along, we could ask for that and then go on to your next item for us.
What's the holdup, Rush?
Thank you for that suggestion. I like that a lot. But I'm kind of, Peter went out and got a haircut, an accountant's haircut. So
And how can we move him? How can we move him now?
isn't he in contention for this job? I mean,
We are going to have to reevaluate. That's correct. Yeah.
I wore a tie too, you asked me.
I know.
It's not doing all the hand movements.
Must have had a job evaluation coming up.
Looking good, Peter.
So would you like us to accept this? Is that what we're being
Yeah,
asked to do?
I did want to mention, Director Cicada kind of jogged my memory. I do feel like that chart E on page 5 of the report is one of the most, if it gives you any comfort, that is the chart that you should look at. As I mentioned before, we were kind of pay as you go up until the point of 2009 when we entered PARS. What you're seeing there is you're seeing what is the total OPEB liability is in that blue line. So if you start at 2009, the red is where we started pre-funding that. So the red is the net position, and as you can see, that's climbing, and that's actually closing the gap over time of that liability. And so, you can only forecast out so far on that. So, but as you can see, Jeff did put some forethought into making sure that we were starting to pre-fund this. What we've done at this point is we haven't touched that PARS trust. And then we've been continuing to pay what's called the actuarial determined contribution, the ADC. Just so you know, we don't have to pay that. That is a suggested amount, and we funded that every single year. And so if you look at other government agencies around the state, they don't all, budgets, considerations, things happen, people get stretched thin. They don't fund that, and so at a full amount. So just know that the district has taken this pretty seriously and is probably, I would say, in a better position than most.
And
Yeah.
Peter, what is the current policy on this? I mean, just pay what they recommended, like you said? And that's something I think the district should be looking at, some official printed policy of where we want this to go. And you're right, on this chart, it does look really good. We're really close to being fully funded. But how are we going to sustain that? And I think that's the next step that we need to look at in a policy.
Yeah.
And I think,
Because-
and you can manage those things, obviously through your negotiations with the two bargaining units, and then also, obviously in your budgeting too as well. So that is fully in the board's authority as to how they're going to do that. And we could take a look at the financial management policies and make sure that if there's something in there that maybe needs some updating or give someone more comfort to make sure that we're funding these things at a total. But and I think this is part of the total compensation package at this district. And so I think it's when you saw the presentation, timing this is very interesting. You just saw the presentation from
Right.
COF, right? And as a percentage of benefit, it's like percentage of total compensation. We found that maybe necessarily our compensation wasn't that great, but as a percentage of total compensation, the benefits were actually pretty good. So, but then it showed that, all those things added up together, we were kind of somewhere in the middle, right? So,
Well,
And, we have to remember where Jeff, brought us. He
Right.
formulated this, and, he was very proud of the fact that we were the only agency who did this, who followed this in the entire state, because he would go to the aqua conferences, and, he was just so pleased to be able to tell people what we did.
Well, that's a big accomplishment.
Yes,
I'd be
absolutely,
proud of that, too, if I
absolutely.
were him. But I would like to see the presentation, and then after that, decide how we want to go, if at all, based on any potential suggestions.
okay, so we can give it to responsibility to our GM to, when, as Scott has suggested, we wait until we have somebody who has a new haircut and. But
so the timing is
And
good.
give him a couple of months before.
I'm going to say maybe,
Yeah.
November, December or something. We'll
The
see.
timing is good. I
Good
just
job.
received a proposal
Weather.
from Nicolay to do the next report. It's actually 2 years reports, which is a much more intense, but they would start that work right after the auditors finish their efforts. And so we could just build that into whatever their next contract is, so.
Okay, the statement that you made earlier about that we haven't touched that trust fund, if we started funding it in 2009, so we've been pre-funding for 10 years now. Certainly, some people have retired in that 10-year period. But when will funds start getting extracted from the pre-funded account?
So my understanding is, looking at this report, is that we're on target right now to fully fund this within 10 years and close that gap based upon historical contributions. So we would be pre-funding at 100% by 10 years from now.
10 years from now?
Yes,
So after 20 years from the inception?
yeah. So,
Okay, all right.
but if you were just paying the minimum contribution, it could push it out to more like 20 years.
Okay, I think if there are no further questions, can we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion
What are we voting on, just to
Just
accept
to
it?
accept it.
the report as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anyone wishing to make a public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, Rebecca, would you please call an ambulance for,
Yeah,
or call the board, please?
please.
Today.
I know, that was pretty good for Russ. You're having a good day, Russ.
You're
He's
not.
gonna be out of town for a couple of weeks.
Director Leo?
Yes.
Director Ryan?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Zeta?
Yes.
President Thompson?
Yes. Okay, this next item is a stunning thing, nothing to report. Okay.
Looks great.
Okay, 6A, report on the August 2019 Operations Department. Hello, Damon.
Hello, good afternoon, President Thomas, directors. Good to see you all. I think the theme of August could be characterized by leak repair, by the statement leak repair. The Copper Cove distribution crew repaired about 27 service line leaks for an approximate gallons per minute total of about 98. When you add the couple, or the one main line leak in there, it's about 108 gallons a minute total. And then for the Rancho crew, they repaired 47 service line leaks, and some of those actually included service line replacement. So that was for about 171 gallons a minute total estimation. I mean, this is frankly eyeballing the leak repair and saying, that's 5, you know what I mean? So it's gonna be somewhat, it's pretty raw, let's just
Well,
put
it's
it that way.
clearly Rancho's winning.
Rancho is winning
Jane
the
Lane,
race.
yeah.
So here's just, I wanna, yeah.
Should be a
Run-
trophy at the end, trophy presentation at the
It's,
end of the year.
I have a bunch of them in my office if you like some. Some are this long with repair clamps on them.
Perfect,
You know, we thought about doing like a game of Thrones thrown.
Yeah.
With all the service lines
That's a good idea, too.
and repair clamps hanging off. Be pretty cool. Yes. So here are some pictures of some of the month's work efforts. This is a mainline repair in Rancho, Mulford Court. This is a 2-inch, we call it a water main. Luckily, there was only one customer affected by this. This was about a 20-foot stretch of this 2-inch pipeline, which we call Bluebell. It's a very thin wall. Spiral broke, and so you can see the staff worked throughout the night to make the repair and install a 20-foot stick of pipe. And then here's kind of what we've been experiencing lately. We've had some service lines the past couple months that are transversing concrete driveways, and this service line actually serves 2 meters. So we had to, when we did this work and completed the repair, we sleeved the service line, so should there be a failure in the future, we can just simply put the new service line in through the sleeve. So there's the base rock cover, and we then we'll finish it up with some asphalt, or I mean some concrete, excuse me. So this is the water main repair that occurred on Copper Cove Drive in Copperopolis, bright and spry morning a couple weeks ago. It's really hard to make out, but the picture on the left depicts the corporation stop that is actually leaking at the connection to the water main. So what we often find is this is a classic example of a service line connection both in Rancho and in Copperopolis of the coupling that connects the AC water main has a corporation stop or a connection threaded directly into the coupling. And you can see it's really hard to make out, but there's water kind of shooting out of the thread area. And so this was quite a work effort for 8 minutes of a repair. So we unthread that, literally cut the service line, which was going to an empty lot, and then thread in the corporation stop and put the water main back in business in about 8 minutes. But it also involved, a crew of,
When you're talking corporation stops, are those like the usual equipment or part that you use?
Yes.
Or is it something you could say going forward, we won't use those types anymore because these are old policy or procedure when this was put in originally?
It's actually standard. So the corporation stop is what was in there initially is substandard. And so what we're installing now is the standard. So the corporation stop actually has a little valve that you can open and close with a valve key. So in an ideal world, if you understand that all of your service lines have these valves on them, you can actually locate through listening devices and other methods where you think the leak may be, pothole to the main, find the corporation stop, and then shut that off without having to excavate, make a big trench, call in everybody for traffic control, potentially, raise the concern of boil water advisory due to loss of pressure. I mean, all of these things.
When you said substandard, back then when these were put in, that was
the
the
standard.
current standard?
Right,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
yep, yeah. And then just to kind of follow up on what I was telling you also is that, that's what, a $60, $70 part, if I were to go buy it at the store, but it eliminates the need for so many folks and so much traffic control and such a work effort. And so, whenever we make those repairs, it is brought up to standard. Here's a depiction of a service line replacement project on Uncle Billy.
Going back,
Yeah.
can I ask you a question about that, the stop that you put in there has a valve on it?
Yep.
Is that intended to facilitate running in a future service line?
Yep, exactly, yep. There is an opportunity here too. I mean, as you see, we couple service lines together. It's not ideal. I think the method here would be to actually pull the new service line through where the corporation stop is and then connect it there and then cut it on the outside of the roadway. So you have to get in, basically you would pothole in and you could thread the new service line right to the existing, tie them together and pull it on through.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Once again, Uncle Billy service line, this is a complete replacement. Unfortunately, where we were not able to pull a line through, that's generally what we'll try first on all of the replacement efforts that we have. And if we can't do it, and if we feel like we're just ruining the integrity of the new polypropylene, we'll just open a trench and install. So that's what happened here. Incidentally, we are going to replace about 10 services in copper with copper. So we're going to use 10 services in Copperopolis as a litmus test with sand backfill 12 inches above the service line, and then base rock up to the asphalt layer. Here's some photographs regarding a fire hydrant replacement on Cedar Vista up on the pass. It's kind of hard to make out on the picture on the left, but you can see that there's a pipe snapping tool that's on the hydrant runner to the hydrant, and what we do is we just simply snap that off and install the whole fire hydrant with a connection apparatus right to the hydrant runner. And then you can see the picture on the left is the bucket dropping a precast kicker right up against the hydrant, and then the final on the right. Let's see, what do we have next? And this is some photos associated with the mainline break that occurred up on the pass. As part of the Reach One project, Mazinga was working to install pipe and actually found a water line that we didn't know existed. And so it was it was a potential service for future use that was going to cross the highway. And it's a 6-inch water line, so there was quite a bit of water come out. Luckily, it was a 1-valve shutdown, and we were able to repair it pretty short order because it was excavated already. So, and then this was an interesting one. We're still working on this. So this is the pressure reducing valve vault that feeds Saddle Creek Golf Course, and it comes from the B tank zone in Copperopolis. The picture on the right gives you an idea of the thickness of the lid of this vault, and the picture on the left gives you an idea of the size. And so these vaults require maintenance. The pressure reducing valves require maintenance. You have to replace the diaphragms in them generally every 2 years. And so the concern we have with this is that when we have staff entering and exiting, this is a confined space, permit required every single time. However, when they enter now into that small doorway, it's tough to get folks in and out of, even if though it's always a permit required confined space. And the other issue is that the pressure reducing valve lids inside of this vault are on a 12-inch water line and an 8-inch water line, and the 12-inch lid weighs about 270 pounds. So in order to lift that, replace the diaphragm inside, we'd almost have to create an apparatus to be able to get under there and lift that lid off of the pressure reducing valve. So we actually cut the lid off and removed it, and we're going to install a lighter lid with some larger doors so that we can open it wide and then use cranes off of our district trucks and lift gates in order to get to the components of the pressure reducing valves inside and safely maintain them. Because this is keeping Saddle Creek, even now, I think some of the low points are about 120 PSI. So if this lets loose, there could be a lot of service line breaks, a lot of issues in Saddle Creek as a result of being unable to replace the diaphragm in this pressure reducing valve. That's why it's such a critical item.
How did you lift the lid? That's a 10 or 11,000 pound.
We actually chopped it up.
Okay.
Yeah. And so on the right, you can see we put the protective fencing around, and we're actually purchased some steel, and we're working with a local welder to manufacture a new lid. And then finally, the thank you picture is a nice rock on top of a service line.
It looked like that lid, the joint between the vault and the lid was down below the ground level. So if you're fabricating a metal cover, how are you going to keep it from leaking, from filling up with ground or surface water?
That's a great question. We're actually going to work on setting it, and we don't anticipate it being completely watertight. However, the vault itself is designed to drain, and this is really how we started down the path of understanding that we needed to make an improvement here, is that staff went out and realized the vault was full of water. It was essentially a swimming pool. And we pumped it out, and we noted that the drain was plugged. And so it does drain, and you can kind of see it on the picture on the left. There's there's an area to the right where it's somewhat greenish, and that's the vault is plumbed to that area, and it also is the natural runoff for the whole hillside, so it's kind of a draw there. But we anticipate some water getting in there. Okay. It's just keeping the drain clear will be our plan attack.
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, with all the line breaks or the repairs that you have to do down in Rancho, how many customers are we talking?
I want to say it's right around 3,000. I can't remember off the top of my head the number of customers.
So that's as many as we have in Ebbets Pass full time. Yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I had noted in your write-up that you have filled the purchase agent position? Purchasing agent position? Are we gonna meet him at some point?
We already know him quite well.
I know, well,
but I will.
you know him,
I'm
but
going to
we
touch
don't.
on that in my report.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, and then, what is EVAC mapping training? Is that E short for evacuation?
Correct. Yep. So evacuation map training associated with inundation maps. So basically, through emergency action plans with our Division of Safety of Dam, jurisdiction dams, there's evacuation plans that are developed, and so staff went to training to better understand how to develop those maps.
Oh, okay.
I understand there's a new operator of the golf course and a new name for the golf course in Saddle Creek.
Right.
And I got a couple calls from golfers that they're getting watered with, they're getting sprinkled with treated water while golfing during the day.
How do they know?
And I mean, it's not, I don't think they're supposed to be. And I don't know if it's, I know they're not supposed to be.
Right, yeah.
But I'm just wondering if there's, and it's not necessarily our responsibility or liability on CCWD, but the disposal of that water, I don't even know if they know that, whether or not they're supposed to be doing that as new operators of a golf course.
So our field staff have had meetings with the superintendent out on the golf course and discussed in detail where we discharge the tertiary treated water for their use. But I think it's always a good idea to touch base and kind of get an understanding of where their staff are in terms of discharge, daytime, golfing, water quality.
Right.
We'll touch
So-
base for sure.
So we do have a new name instead of Saddle Creek, we're Copper Valley? So are we gonna be renaming all of our things to Copper Valley?
That's take a little while. Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you all.
Damon. Okay, we have a general manager report at this point.
So I will start with some employee changes, updates on that, including the purchasing agent. Our new engineer started this week. We're very excited to have him on board, and I'm sure we have probably overloaded him already. But he seems up to the task. We conducted internal interviews for the purchasing agent. We had a candidate show up having, fully studied our purchasing policy. He has previous experience, previous employment, managing inventory, even designing warehouses. Came with all sorts of ideas on how to save costs, and it really kind of took it by the horns. So we're really excited that a current member of our construction crew, Mike Crank, will be the new purchasing agent effective October 1st. And we're recruiting internally to backfill his position and see where all the chips fall after that.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
I recall reading the list of qualifications, and it was lengthy. Did Mike have a hand in making that qualification, so he's the only,
Did he have a hand in what?
in making that list of qualifications, because it seemed like it was his crafted either for him or by him.
I don't, as with many job descriptions, I don't know there's any single person that could check every single box. But he certainly checked a lot of them.
Checked a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That
Yeah,
was-
we're
that was good.
optimistic. We also have, okay, so a couple of construction project updates. Reach 1 was progressing very well. We were very pleased with the progress on that right up until today. And Zingo has relocated. So we're working with them to figure out what the issue is and where we are on the priority list to restart that project. So more to come on that.
Relocate.
What? They stopped?
They stopped, they pulled off today.
Why?
So we're not exactly sure. So I will follow up with you on that.
There were people out there today.
I think they were moving their equipment out, is our understanding. So we're gonna,
What?
like I said, I don't have a whole lot of information right now, but I'll provide an update as soon as I have one. And we had a problem.
We didn't pay them.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we've been paying them. And then a problem on the Techite line today. All good news for you, Director Underhill. But we have a leak on the Techite line today, so a boil water advisory for about 130 customers, I think. And crews up there right now working on that.
What's the status of the replacement of that line?
We're we're reevaluating the design.
Right.
To put it back out to bid, so it certainly won't be done, we're going into winter and that's up on MECO. So it certainly won't be done going into this winter. But we're hoping that the redesign, including incorporating some input from our operators, will bring the cost of the project down so that we can get it done next summer. We have some meetings coming up, and we've had a couple in the last couple of weeks, and we have a couple more coming up with the Army Corps of Engineers we're very aggressively pursuing funding for a couple of different projects. One of them is the Section 219 authorization we've talked quite a bit about. And Mia has been diligent in following up on that and setting up all the right meetings with all the right people, as she tends to do. And we don't have any, we won't know, I don't think, for probably another month. But that we're pushing as hard as we can to get that included into the budget. And then also meeting on site with a crew from the Army Corps at Huckleberry Lift Station tomorrow to talk about Section 214 funding for stream bank stabilization, and see if that's a candidate for some federal funding there as well. We've got, let's see, what else do I have? We're making progress, at least in the planning phase of the courtyard. I want to give you regular updates on that. The lot line adjustment has been submitted, so we're working on merging the lots, and working on how the process for how we're going to go about selecting a contractor and moving forward with that construction as quickly as possible. We had decided already not to wait for that project to bring the purchasing agent on board. We think there's plenty of work for that person to do right now, but we're excited about getting his input in the design and how that project moves forward. So,
Michael, are we going to be looking at your design and approving that, or is that something we do not do?
we'll certainly be bringing updates. I'm not sure if there's an approval in there, but we're not gonna, there won't be any surprises. I can assure you of that. The few meetings over the last few weeks, attended the Poker Flat HOA annual meeting along with President Thomas and Joel. EPOC up in Ebbets Pass, and really still in all of those meetings, all of our community meetings at this point, really still trying to drive home the water conservation message when the PSPS events happen. So trying to raise the awareness of that. At our quarterly utilities meeting here yesterday, the county's revised draft new trench policy is out. They're not calling it the dig once policy anymore, but their revised trenching policy was the main topic of discussion, I would say, and we're providing input on that. They, to the county's credit, they took a lot of the input that we provided and other utilities provided, and they clearly put a lot of thought and a lot of work into the revised draft. We still have some concerns that we're communicating to them, but we certainly appreciate the level of effort they're putting into it. And the State of the County event last week, I thought went very well. I think, we're trying to build a lot of positive momentum here at the district, and the county, I think, is really trying to do the same thing with new personnel, with the new CAO, new building official, new director of public works, new county OES director. And I think we're establishing good working relationships with all of those folks. And so I think there's a lot there. It seemed to me, at least, the feeling in the room was pretty optimistic for for the future. So I thought that was a very good event. There were a few positive comments about CCWD and one negative one, but I already addressed that one, so not too bad. Could have been a lot worse. Other than that, I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, any comments on that? I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I was saying about our interim administration director's haircut. But I want to compliment you, Michael, on your choice of the interim. He's doing a very impressive job. I appreciate it very much. It shows the effort that you're putting forth. Good job.
Actually, that reminds me of probably the most important point that I wanted to make, if you don't mind. Really, in watching Damon's presentation, and just the amount of work and activity that is going on is really really kind of mind-boggling at times. But we've got such an incredible team Damon's crew, the amount of work that they're doing is really remarkable. Peter's taken on a second full-time job and he's taking it very seriously, doing a really impressive job. We just can't say enough about how much work is getting done right now and the crew that we have in place. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was the point that I wanted to address too, and including, I think, the restructuring, a lot of the construction work that Damon highlighted is in part because we have that larger construction crew that's able to move around or split up as they need to, or take on bigger projects and really knock out a bunch of work. So I think we're seeing more productivity out of our field staff than we had before, and we've gotten good feedback from the field staff as well. So just a really, really impressive amount of work.
Thank you, everybody.
That's good. Okay, moving on to board reports, information, future agenda items.
Okay. I want to second Michael's comment about the state of Calaveras, and I was very, very impressed with the new CAO. The speech that he gave about his game plan and what he sees in Calaveras I found it very honest and very truthful, and well, that's the feeling that I got from this fella. He's, down to earth, and he is going to, I think he's going to perform very, very well. He's gathered all of his forces together, and we will see a lot of success out of the county.
I couldn't agree more. I'm really optimistic, and I'm really impressed with the amount of outreach that he's doing with other agencies. He's clearly prioritized, building relationships with us and with all the other local agencies. I've met with him personally on several occasions already. He really wants to, bring people together and work together, be more productive working together. So I'm really optimistic.
Okay, well, my statement, I was going to make a comment about Reach One, and I'm just flabbergasted about the current state, and I'm sure we're going to find out about it, because I was going to say timing, and I've said this before, timing is the element when you're going through road construction as to whether or not you sit there for 2 minutes or you sit there for 20 minutes. So it's been very smooth, and I shouldn't, that was all Mazingo, so I don't know what happened. I was reading a Sierra Club newsletter, and it was very interesting. There was a picture of Barbara Balin, the current president of TUD, and next to it was an article on Dragoon Gulch Trail being built, and with the help of a group called VOCAL, V-O-CAL, and these are Volunteers for Outdoor California, and they're going to be doing a new trail by Dragoon Gulch, and of course TUD is involved with it. And so if we need something, I'm going to leave this to you, Michael. I don't know if you have this publication at home. You could read up on them, because they're stationed, or they're headquartered in Belmont, and they go all over helping to do projects outdoors. So that free is a good.
I'll take as much free labor as we can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
We might need a couple trails,
Absolutely.
built right next door.
Right.
Oh, okay, well, here it is. Here's the info for you, okay?
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So other than that, we'll meet after our closed session, huh, Michael?
You have anything to report?
I have nothing to report.
Really?
In the interest of time. No.
No, okay. Cindy, you?
I reported at our last meeting, the previous IRWM meeting, but last week I did attend a DWR pre-application workshop for projects that are Mountain County's funding area that IRWM will be presenting, so that was really interesting, even though I don't like going to Sacramento, and I'm not going again. And then I see that West Point is getting a bikeway project. It started yesterday. It's on Main Street in Pine. There's road closures, you guys are aware of it, and that's supposed to be done in October. That's all I have.
Okay.
I just want to bring back, I'd like to have some information brought back to me, whether in a meeting or off-grid, on what the status of La Cantera Sewer is, capacity, where we are in that. I want to make sure that we're moving forward to make sure that we are going to have capacity at La Cantera for many years to come.
We'll follow up on that.
Okay, if I can kind of piggyback on that, I see a tremendous amount of building activity going on in Copperopolis right now. The new owners that were previously mentioned of the formerly Saddle Creek facilities, I think that they're likely to impress all of us in the next year or so with the amount of work that they're going to do. So we need to make sure that our water treatment, sewer treatment facilities are going to be able to keep pace. And I'm particularly, I continue to be concerned about that 18-wheeler pipeline that we've got going from Coppertown Square down to the sewer treatment plant. Need to get some sort of a feasible plan.
Get a dredge or
Get a dredge, dig a trench.
float it down?
Yeah.
We have talked to the developer about that, where we invited their engineer to come and talk about the types of, whatever plans that they might want to consider. And so far, they haven't submitted anything to us.
Okay. I also wanted to mention how positive the the vibe, I guess you'd call it was at that the state of the county breakfast meeting. I thought it was fairly commendable on the part of the CAO to coin a new name or proposed name for the county. It's Calitopia. It's much different than the
To replace Calabama? We're going to replace Calabama?
Yeah. Calabama is out, man.
That's going to be tough, man. People already have shirts.
We have to get some new shirts. We can help.
Calisippi.
You guys have no respect. Okay, I think that's all I have to report, other than I'm going to be on the road here pretty quick, so after our closed session discussion. So I think. Okay, the next board meeting will be on Wednesday, September 25th at 1 p.m., and I will be rolling into the parking lot just prior to that meeting probably, so in the motorhome. And then following that meeting will be, the next one's October 9th. And we are going now into...
Real quick, President Thomas, if you don't mind, on the next meeting, so far we have a very light agenda, and I am supposed to be at a conference that week, so staff's evaluating will be in contact with you about whether or not that meeting is necessary or not. But at this point, it's looking like an optional one, but we'll follow up with you on that. You have phones where you're going.
Are we talking about the next meeting?
25th.
Oh, the
No,
October-
the September
No,
25th.
September 25th, yeah.
Okay,
Well,
I just want,
My vacation a little early.
I just want to let everyone know I most likely will be traveling on October 9th.
Okay.
No, yeah.
All right.
Usually I don't say anything.
I just have to announce that we're going into closed session now. We have a conference with real property negotiators according to Government Code 54956.8, property in San Andreas, and we have a conference with real estate negotiators on also a property in Valley Springs, and we have a conference with legal counsel of potential litigation, and then finally on 9D, public employee performance, evaluation of our general manager. Whew.
Again?
again. Okay, we will return to report. Here she comes.